Have you ever felt the tickle of a hair on the back of your neck? And did you try to swat it away, just in case it might have been a spider? You probably wouldn't have done that if you never had that one previous experience with an actual spider that you thought was just a hair. Our unconscious expectations, based on past experiences like that one, shape our future reality. And it's no different for pain. No matter what the cause is, whether it's from how we sit or stand or from a combination of inflammation and stress, once we're feeling pain, the intensity and how much we suffer from it is largely determined by our past experiences with pain. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett is a psychology professor and researcher at Northeastern University. While studying emotions, she noticed that both emotions and pain share the brain's predictive mechanism. In other words, instead of being a reaction to outside triggers like posture, inflammation, and stress, the way that we think, the experience of pain, just like emotion, is technically a prediction, an estimation that the brain and nervous system make based on past experience. Think of when a toddler falls down and skins their knee. What's the first thing they do? There's usually a pause, right? They don't cry right away. They take time to look around at others to try to figure out how they should react, because their young brain doesn't yet have enough experience to predict the outcome and the expectation of that new event. Chances are, after looking around at whoever's nearby, that toddler might hear either something like, "You're fine, walk it off, come on, let's keep going." Or, "Oh, poor sweetie, come here, let me help you with that." Or, if the crying starts, maybe even, "Stop your crying, get up, what will people think?" Those are all really different messages, but each reinforces the idea that either we are bad for having pain or pain is bad and should be stopped or ignored. Now, there's nothing wrong with moving forward from pain, but what if, before we do that, we find a way to welcome and make space for this very valid and universal experience? You might be wondering, why would I want to welcome pain? Okay. Have you ever tried to stop or ignore feelings like anger or sadness? You can definitely do it, but emotions have a way of resurfacing eventually. And when they do, they can be much more confusing and overwhelming because the context, our understanding for the experience that initially triggered those feelings, is long forgotten by that point. And in some cases, might never have even had a chance to form. If, as the neuroscience suggests, both pain and emotion share brain biology, consider for a minute the possibility that ignoring and dismissing first signs of pain might not be so different from suppressing our emotions. The more we push it aside, the more we lose that connection and understanding with what was going on when the pain first started. How are we supposed to cope with something we don't understand and have no connection to? So then years down the road, when there's an unexpected, debilitating version of that same pain, it too can be extremely confusing and overwhelming. When I was 7 years old, I had my own very first painful stiff neck. This unfamiliar stabbing and shooting with every move of my head had me in tears. So my parents took me to the chiropractor for the first time. The problem with that early treatment experience was not only did my pain not go away, but I was not invited into the conversation that day. The doctor spoke with my dad, and then he handled my spine without explaining anything to me. My memory of that experience was so unpleasant that I actually completely blocked it out until years after, ironically, I became a chiropractor myself. Now, I understand that in all of my professional work, I'm constantly striving to provide what I wish someone had offered me all those years ago. Back then, I was left with no idea why my neck hurt or if there was anything I could do for it myself. And by being excluded from the conversation, I missed the opportunity to find my own words for the experience, to create context, understanding for myself. And sure enough, for decades after that, I continued to have seemingly mysterious relapses of that same neck pain, each time with worry and confusion. You know that quiet pause after the toddler falls down, but before the crying starts? That is a window of opportunity that we all have every time there's a new pain. It's during that window that we can create context for our pain experience. Context gives us a framework to make sense of what happened to us. That framework can either be full of fear and confusion, like it was for me at age 7, or it can be full of empowerment and reassurance. Creating context of any kind starts with conversation. How we talk to ourselves and how others talk to us about our pain early on really matters. But I'm finding that many patients aren't even talking to themselves about their own pain because they're so busy ignoring and dismissing it the way that we've all been taught. So when a professional like myself finally asks about it, many of us are missing the right descriptive vocabulary for our unique pain experience. This creates a serious problem for anyone who treats pain because without clear descriptive details, it's really easy for doctors and practitioners to misunderstand and unintentionally to project their own pain beliefs and biases, which can lead to the wrong treatment. The way my own chiropractic practice has evolved, I find myself mostly treating what I would call common, everyday aches and pains. Despite how that sounds, this sort of pain can be extremely severe, overwhelming, and confusing. What's worse is that it often seems like it came out of nowhere because there's no significant injury or event to help explain it. For example, patients will tell me things like, I was just relaxing on the couch after a long day, but when it was time to get up and go to bed, I could barely straighten up, it hurt so much. Or I'll hear something like, I felt fine when I went to bed, but when I woke up, I could barely lift my head off the pillow. My neck hurt so much. I want to tell you about Jane. She's a patient of mine in her late 50s. Dealing with a familiar lower back and hip pain that's just been coming and going for years. The first few times I saw her, she was in too much discomfort for me to do my usual hands-on work. So in order to find a way to be helpful, I really needed more from her than just hearing her say, this is where it hurts. My standard questioning goes something like this. What does that pain feel like? What's the sensation? How would you describe it? Or what does it compare to? I'm listening for descriptive words, adjectives like stabbing, tingling, aching. Instead, I often will hear combinations of words like muscle pain, nerve pain, tendonitis pain. Those are all nouns, assumptions that can make us and others think that we know what the source of pain is. But remember, sensation doesn't necessarily correlate with our assumed expectations. That tickle on the back of your neck, is it a hair or is it a spider? So when I hear combinations of words like that, nouns, assumptions, My response is, okay, but what does that feel like to you in your body right now? And it's this kind of questioning that helped Jane to pay attention to the pain that she'd been working so hard to ignore and push through all these years. My need for a more detailed description let her know that paying attention is in fact vital for reconnecting with the context, which can lead to better pain coping. So after those first few visits, Jane came back to tell me that she was experiencing overwhelming relief. And quite frankly, I was puzzled because my professional training taught me the way to get results is with hands-on care. And up to that point, I had done very little with Jane besides just talking. But she explained her pain was still there to some degree, but her relief was from our conversations. Connecting and describing things helped her to see everything in a whole new light, one in which she plays a crucial role in the experience of her pain. She was describing better pain coping. Now, compared to things like cancer and broken bones, everyday aches and pains just don't seem that important. So it can feel really reasonable to ignore and push through these types of pain. But you know, if you've done this, the pain does not go away. We're simply forcing ourselves to adapt, just like with suppressed emotions, until we just simply can't adapt anymore. But remember, the science is showing us that pain and emotions share mechanisms in the brain and nervous system. So wouldn't it make sense to address early signs of pain in the same way we would do with emotions? You know, if we do it in a healthy way, of course. What would that look like? Psychologist John Gottman at the University of Washington did research that was instrumental in developing what is now widely referred to as emotion coaching. He was studying parenting styles and found that in families where emotion coaching strategies were used, those kids demonstrated measurably better emotional coping and emotional resilience over time. He identified 5 specific steps that are shown to help kids develop healthy context and language around difficult or intense emotions. And this is what it would look like if we were to do the same thing for earliest signs of pain. The 5 steps are: pay attention to it. Don't push it aside. Acknowledging pain and emotion, big or small, does not mean that you are weak. It means you're paying attention. 2, name it. Finding words to describe any new experience can make it a lot less scary. 3, validate it for yourself and for others. If pain and emotions are rooted in our biology, it's real. You're not making it up. 4, learn from it. There's usually a good reason for pain initially, just like with emotions, initially, before we suppress it for years. Reconnecting with the context helps us to discover what that reason was. And 5, problem solve. This is where you go get help so that you can learn how to help yourself in the future. When my patient Jane initially told me about her relief, I was attributing that success exclusively to step number 2, the power in naming the pain. But the closer I looked at Gottman's work and all of the 5 steps together, the more I recognized every single aspect of almost each patient encounter in my office. Like every other chiropractor, I also learned how to do the traditional spinal treatments that we are known for. But that dramatic joint cracking just isn't always appropriate. So for some time now, I've been incorporating other techniques, more gentle techniques as well. taking time with the muscles and using ice and heat. I used to think that all those extras made me less of a chiropractor. But spending all that extra time with each visit lends itself really well to more in-depth conversations. My patients are not just finding words to name their pain. The ones who see lasting relief from better pain coping are going through all 5 steps of Gottman's proven strategy. This 5-step approach has real potential to create better coping and better resilience for all of us at any age. This stuff works for emotions, yes, and it works for pain. My hope is that after today, you remember this as the moment when you started a new relationship with your pain. We've all skinned our knees, and we will all have everyday aches and pains. But it's becoming clear now that the experience of pain today has the potential to transform tomorrow's pain. So try to stay open without judgment, and by expressing a caring curiosity, you can transform pain for yourself and for your loved ones by mindfully walking through the 5 steps. Pay attention to it, name it, validate it, learn from it, and problem solve. What's most important is to seize that window of opportunity right after the earliest sign of pain, but before the crying starts. That's when you can choose how to speak to it and how to move forward in life. Not without pain, but with it. Thank you.